All right, today we've got the first Tomlin Performance install video. We've got an oil cooling kit for these 370Zs. I've got a link to these in the description below, and there also might be one up at the top. We're gonna do a quick unboxing, and then we're gonna get right into the install. It's pretty straightforward, and I'll go ahead and show you guys everything you need. All right, so first up, we've got the oil cooler. These are 10-row oil coolers with dash 10 fittings. On the front side, you've got the Tomlin Performance logo, and then if you want to run it kind of a little more sleek and hidden, you've got the black side as well. I'm going to mount mine with the Tomlin Performance logo out today. And then you've got two oil lines. One of them comes with a straight fitting and a 90-degree fitting. And then there's another one that has two 90-degree fittings. I'll show you which to use for what later. All right, and then next up, you've got the sandwich plate. It comes with a stud extender for the oil filter stud. And then you've also got the sandwich plate for both oil lines that go to the cooler, the feed and return. And then we've also got the oil pan spacer, and this is the only kit on the market right now that comes with an oil pan spacer and all the oil cooling stuff. This gives you about an extra quart of oil capacity, extends your oil life, and also that extra fluid helps keep your temperatures down. And then here's all the hardware for that. I'm gonna sell two versions of this kit. One is with this, and then one is without if you don't wanna run this. I recommend running it though, because it does help keep your oil temperatures down and extend your oil life. And then last, we've got the brackets, just the mounting brackets for the oil cooler, and then they've come with hardware in them as well. Also, it wouldn't be car parts if you didn't get stickers. So all the kits come with this Tomlin Performance sticker here, and then this white TP emblem as well. And then if you run those stickers on your car or anywhere else, make sure to tag me on Instagram and I'll repost that. I'd like to see you guys repping the brand, so. All right, the first step I like to do whenever doing these, if you've got the oil pan spacer, if not, you can skip to this part of the video, is to go ahead and drain the oil and pull the oil pan off and do that first. You'll have to use some gasket maker, and then you can start letting that dry while you do the rest of it, so I do it first. So first we're gonna go ahead and drain the oil. It's a 17mm drain bolt. You just pull that off, drain the oil, take the filter off. This part's pretty straightforward. You ever seen somebody quick enough to pull this out without getting oil on their fingers? Sheesh.
Let's check it. Check your
She's clean, she's clean. Sheesh. The oil's just about done draining. I'm gonna go ahead and take the filter off. I'll show you a quick trick with this. It helps keep it from being such a mess. If you're careful, you can poke a hole in the oil filter, just like that, and drain some of the oil out so it doesn't drip over everything whenever you're trying to pull it off. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and take the oil filter off. All right, now with that mostly drained, I'm gonna go ahead and stick this drain plug back on before we pull the oil pan down, just to prevent like any more drips coming out from underneath it while I'm working under it. But there will be some leftover oil that will get out once we pull that oil pan off here in just a second. There's 10mm bolts around the oil pan here. I'm gonna go ahead and take off now. There should be 10 of them. All right, and then when you take the last one off, go ahead and support the pan. It should stay up though, because it's got sealant around it, but just in case, it's good to have your hand under it. Looks like mine's still on there pretty good. So with all that hardware removed, we'll go ahead and grab some kind of chisel or putty knife to pry this oil pan off. You'll kind of have to cut through all the sealer that's around it. All right, this part will take some effort, but just kind of keep slowly working it. You don't want to scratch up the mating surfaces. Once you kind of cut around all the sealant, it'll start to come down. So just take your time, go slowly, and then remember that there will still be some oil in the pan. When you drain it, you don't get quite everything, so keep that in mind and don't dump it on yourself. And then just go ahead and drain the rest of that oil out. All right, so I've got this flat bladed tip on my X-Acto knife. You can use a razor, like a putty knife, anything like that'll do. And then I'm just gonna go around here and work on cleaning off all of this old gasket. We'll want that clean before we put our new gasket on. So just take your time and get this clean. It'll take a little bit of work, but you don't want that to be leaking or you'll have to do it again. And then you'll want to clean all the old gasket off of the oil pan as well. We're gonna put gasket maker on this too. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and take the oil pickup off. It's two 12mm bolts. We'll just pull these out. We've got to put a spacer on the pickup since the pan will be lower. All right, so the hardware that comes with the kit here is for the oil pan spacer. We're gonna use this little piece here. This is what's gonna space the oil pickup down. And then these two bigger bolts here are the ones for the pickup. And then the oil pickup goes back in oriented the same way it was, just with that spacer on there. And then go ahead and make sure that you've got the two lock washers that come with the hardware kit as well. These bolts are important to torque down to the right torque spec. I'll have that torque spec up on the screen. Make sure you get those down. You don't want to strip out the threads for these. All right, so now I've got some gasket maker here, and we're gonna go ahead and lay a bead of gasket maker around the oil pan here. I did clean this off with degreaser. You wanna make sure it's as clean as you can get it, just so that you have a good seal there. Again, you don't wanna have to do this again. And it won't take too much gasket maker. You don't want it to like spill over into your oil pan very much. So just be careful. Go around trying to get a consistent layer of it around the whole oil pan, and make sure you get the inside of the bolts. And then we'll put the spacer on and do the same thing for that. All right, so got that bead of sealer laid around the entire pan, and then I dropped a couple bolts in here to help me line it up. I'm gonna set this down here. So we're gonna try to not mess up the gasket maker that we just laid down, and get this carefully into position. Again, and those are just to help line it up. And then with that set down, you want to try and move it around the least that you can. After you've got it set on there, you can go ahead and check this inside edge here to make sure that your gasket maker isn't seeping into the pan too much, because you don't want that in there. And then we're going to just go ahead and do the same thing with the gasket maker around this one. All right, so I got that gasket maker around the oil pan spacer. We're gonna go ahead and get this under the car. It's gonna be a little bit difficult to keep everything all lined up. Again, you don't wanna move it around and mess up your gasket maker. So I've got 4 bolts here. I'm gonna put it up and get them started with my impact here. You won't wanna impact these bolts on. You wanna torque them down to the appropriate torque spec. I'm just gonna use that as a way to get them started with one hand. I'm not gonna torque it down with those. So we're gonna go ahead and try and get this under the car here. All right, again, you want to have that surface clean, the best you can at least, for the gasket maker. It's okay if it's got a little residue. The gasket maker's oil resistant, so. And then just do your best to get it all lined up before you press it in. And then once you got those bolt holes lined up, you can press it all the way up and get some of your bolts started and just snug them up so it holds the oil pan. Your gasket maker will start to spread out, so it's not like the end of the world if you're moving a little bit, but again, you do want to try your best to keep it as straight as you can. And then I did forget to mention that this corner bolt here, because the oil pan sits a little bit lower, you might run into some issues with the subframe here, getting this bolt to fit in. If you put the bolt in and have it already holding the oil pan and spacer together from the bottom while you're putting this in, you can fit it in without modifying this, but I forgot to do that first. So I just took some pliers and bent this little tab here that just holds on some undershrouding down, so I can sneak this bolt in past there to tighten it up. And then once that's all tightened up, I'll just bend this back up. I don't even run a shroud under here or anything, so it's not important for me, but that's something to note, that if you forget to put that bolt in before you put it up, you might have to bend that down. And also to fit a socket for a torque wrench, you might have to bend that down. So just keep that in mind. This isn't gonna hurt anything if you do have to bend it. And if you're not running anything, you could even just cut it off if you wanted. It's just a hold to hold in some plastic trim that goes under the car, so. Okay, and then these bolts are important to torque down to the right spec. Again, I'll put that up on the screen. And then there's also a sequence for these, so you'll go in a crisscross pattern, so that way you tighten the pan up evenly. For whatever gasket maker you use, follow the directions on that for how long you let that cure before filling it with fluid and starting your car, just so that that has time to fully set. Again, you don't want to ruin that. All right, next we're going to install this sandwich plate. It comes with this stud extender, which is what's going to tighten that on. And then this side here with this rubber gasket is going to be the side that goes against the block here. Make sure your seal for your old oil filter didn't stick against that. Sometimes that can happen, and then it'll cause an oil leak if you put this one on top of it. I always like to take just like a little bit of oil and rub it on this seal, so when you tighten it down, it doesn't wrinkle up or anything. It just makes it seal a little bit better. And then double check that these are snugged up good. You don't want them to leak. They all should be tight. I double check that before I ship them out. And then you can kind of just put your stud extender right in the middle there. And then that screws on to the oil filter stud. So go ahead and get that threaded on. And then for now, we just kind of want to snug this a little bit. We want to move this, or we want to have this mobile, so that we can orient that whenever we put the oil lines on, which is what we're going to do next. And then I'll show you the way I do it. You can orient this whichever way you want, but the way I run my oil lines for this, I'll show you guys how I do that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get the oil cooler mounted up now. I've already attached my lines. This is how you want to run the lines. On the driver's side, you're going to run this straight, and that's going to go straight up. And then on the passenger side, you're going to run the hose that has two 90 fittings. Both ends have this 90-degree fitting. You're going to run that hose on this side and orient the 90 straight this way, so that it can run up with this hose here. And you'll see why in just a second. And then you've got these two brackets here that come with the kit. This one here, this straight one, will bolt right here using this factory bolt here. And then this one, again, using the factory bolt for the power steering cooler, will mount right there. Both of those are 10 millimeters. All right, so I've got my front bumper off. If you want to do it, you don't have to take the front bumper off. You can stick your hands back up here and do this yourself, or you can run your oil lines in a different spot, but this is where I run them. I'm right above the front crash bar in the very middle here. I stick both hoses up from the bottom. Both fit right through here. And you should be pulling, both hoses should have 90-degree fittings here. 90 degrees, just like this one here, because the sandwich plate will have 90-degree fittings on both sides. And then you'll pull this all the way up. And you can just leave yourself a little slack here while you orient the rest of this here. And then you've got two spots here. One's just above this washer container here. You can run one hose through there, and then one just to the right of it next to the crash bar here. Or you can run both through here, both through there. whatever you find to be easiest. It's not super important where these are routed as long as they're not getting pinched or kinked by anything. So just wherever you can get them to fit through here. I usually do one next to the washer and one here. And then once you've got both hoses through here down to the bottom of the car, we can worry about those in just a minute. Now we're gonna get our oil cooler placed. So it'll sit right up here. Leave yourself some slack with those lines so you can kind of move this around a little bit. The way I like to do it is take the brackets and take this hardware that they come with, and then I will loosely get these onto the oil cooler. Again, not tightened all the way so that they have a little bit of room for adjustment. Just kind of finger tightened on. The bolts go in from the top and the brackets have threads. Make sure to use that washer. And then this one here will go on the bottom bolt for this support. You'll just take that bolt or this nut off. Your bracket will slip right over that, and then you'll put that nut right back in the same spot. And again, I just leave it loose until I've got it mounted up, so it just has a little bit of room to flex and adjust. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Just loosely get these two bolts here on your bracket, and then remove this other 10mm bolt here on the bottom of the power steering cooler, and then you'll put it right back in. And then now you can go ahead and make sure that your hoses up here are adjusted so that they fit with enough room, and that your oil cooler is sitting where you want. Again, if you leave everything loose, there will be room for adjustment. And then once you've got everything oriented, you can just go ahead and tighten down your brackets. And then you can go ahead and tighten down these next. These are standard bolts. Normally everything you use is metric, so just know that these are standard. They're 7/16. And so this is about where the oil cooler should sit. Again, just mounted on this center bracket here and the power steering cooler. The hoses will fit right behind the crash bar. If you're having any trouble fitting it, you might have to orient this 90 and angle it a little more this way. And then those will fit up through there. All right, so now we're back under the car, and I'll show you where the oil hoses go from where we stuck them last time. So I like to run them right behind the lines for this power steering cooler. It's a little bit of a tight fit to get them back here, and then they'll go right over this frame member here, and then you'll see where they come out under the car. It'll take a little bit of effort to get them through here, but I think that this is the nicest spot to run them. It protects them the most and keeps them out of the way. And again, you can run them wherever you'd like. That won't change how the oil cooler functions. This is just the way I recommend. All right, so now we're here back to this sandwich plate to attach our oil lines. And this is why I recommended that you leave it loose, was so that you can orient it whatever way you want with your oil lines. Now the kits will come with 90-degree fittings for both ends on this. So you'll have two 90-degree fittings to attach on this. For other reasons, mine has the straight. It was, while we're still developing it, I don't have the newer version. I'm just running it with the straight, but everything is nicer with the 290s. So that's what you guys will get. So mine might be oriented a little bit differently. When you get the 290s, I recommend having this sandwich plate come down to the right of the oil pan just a little bit, and then you can run one of your hoses. They'll both run right next to each other right here, just like that, and then your other one will come off and come up this way. And that's what I recommend for you guys to do, but mine will have to be a little bit different because of the straight piece. Also, my hoses are a little bit longer than yours would be. Yours will be cut to length so that they end up at the sandwich plate a little bit nicer. But the process is still the same. You'll watch me tighten these down. You'll want to do the same steps. All right, and then whichever way you end up putting this on, be mindful of which one you'll need to tighten first. Usually it'll be the top one that you'll have to tighten first, because once that second fitting's on there, you won't be able to reach it. So these don't have to be too tight. It is just aluminum, so you don't want to strip it out, but you want to get them pretty snug. And then once we fill it all with oil, we'll go ahead and double check everything for leaks. So get these snugged up, and then after that we'll have to tighten down that stud extender. All right, now we're going to go ahead and tighten down this stud extender for the sandwich plate. Now this is just going on your oil filter stud, and you know that the oil filter is not supposed to be tightened too much, so it's the same thing with this. We just need to get that rubber gasket to be pressed against the block. There's really not much pressure there, so this doesn't need to be too tight, and it's best to use a socket on here, but I don't have a socket for it. So if you're using a wrench like I am, be sure not to scuff up this surface here. It is just aluminum, so it'll be easy to scrape, but that's where the oil filter will seal against, so you don't want that scraped up too much. So I'm going to go ahead and carefully get this snugged up. All right, now we're going to go ahead and install our oil filter. Again, I just rubbed a little bit of oil on there. It helps it seal against that, and this will screw right onto your stud here. Just spin that on and get it tightened up against the sandwich plate. Which side of the sandwich plate that you screw these hoses on and which side of the oil cooler that they go on does not matter. You can mix that up either way. You can put them on either spot, because at the end of the day, one's a feed and one is a drain. And oil is going to go in one side of the intercooler and come back out the other, whether that goes in the driver's side and comes out the passenger or goes in the passenger and out the driver, doesn't matter. So you don't have to worry about putting these on the wrong sides. It'll work either way. And then the kit does come with this holder for the two hoses. I usually just throw it up on right here. You don't even have to really run this, but it does make the hose routing look a little bit nicer with it. You just tighten that on with an Allen key. So you can put it wherever you want, especially if your hoses are exposed somewhere and you want those to look nice, you can throw it wherever you want to. All right, and then once you've gone over everything to make sure you've got it all tight and everything's looking good, we're gonna be ready to fill this with oil. You can use whatever kind of oil you want. Obviously, I've got this good old Quaker State 530. I like this stuff because it's the ultimate durability, and it got that, adds more power for this bad girl. Yeah, this is the good stuff. It's kind of like that one saying, how's that go? Life's like a box of chocolates, you never know what you get. That's how this oil is. Comes out of the pipeline, it's like that weird stuff that's like mixed in with all the other stuff where yeah, it's like you never know what you're gonna get. So that's why I use this. It's the good stuff. So with this kit, it should take about 7.5 quarts. So just like any other oil change, you'll just fill it up, check the dipstick until it looks good, and then we'll fire it all up, double check that everything's not leaking and that we're still good on oil. So don't even need a funnel. Oh shoot, this is gonna be tough, boys. Bartender me. Didn't even spill that much. That's a good pour, brother.
Some slide.
Dude, that is nice.
Don't.
Look at that. That good old Quaker State oil.
It's basically the same thing as vegetable oil.
And if you're interested, you can pick this stuff up at Menards. I shop there because I like to save big money. Not a sponsor. All right.
All right, let's see if you can do a little better on this one.
What do you mean? We did great last time. Oh, he's warmed up, boys. Oh, all right. All right, so it is the next morning. I wanted to wait until overnight before getting the oil up to temperature and everything with the gasket maker just to give it some time to cure. It ended up taking about 7.5 quarts to get it completely full. So after you fill it, you'll want to go ahead and start it up so that way oil gets through the filter and the cooler and everything. And then check the fittings up at the top to make sure they're not leaking, and then at the sandwich plate as well. That's just to make sure that there's no leaks, that you got all those fittings tight. And then once you've got oil pumped into the cooler and through the filter and everything, you can go ahead and check the dipstick. Just make sure that you're where you want it to be. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the install. Again, I've got a link in the description for this kit. I make them. They are the cheapest kit on the market by far. And of course, you get the sweet stickies, you support your boy, and we'll be developing some more things, hopefully for not just this platform. Hopefully we'll be able to get to a few other platforms as well, and turn Tomlin Performance into something that offers a lot of products. So. And I'll have all those videos of everything I do if you want to stay up to date on that. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers too, so that'll be cool. So yeah, drop a like, get me up to 1,000 subs, and have a good one, brother. Or paper towels, please.
Look at me.